before I even go any farther, yeah, with the gratitude for everyone, I also just want to deep gratitude for all the volunteers, the retreat leaders, the Ascension Camp staff, everyone who is contributing. It's stunning, it's beautiful, it's so heartwarming, it's very moving, and it's honestly necessary at this point for our group. So I can't express how grateful I am for all of you and all the helper beings. So I was teaching with Ani, and we had a theme of the wisdom of joy, and she was coming from her vision of that through her Tibetan lineage, and I was coming from my direct experience and vision of that through our lineage. And it was interesting. Sometimes it seemed like we were almost saying really different things. So it got me, I've been contemplating a lot, reflecting a lot since then. And it moved me to reread Adya's book, The Way of Liberation. I've read it about 4 different times since then, because I was sort of looking for, Ani was introducing some really amazing parameters for those of us on the path of spiritual awakening that are indicated in her lineage, just so that you stay on the rails and the ego doesn't have as great of a chance of co-opting whatever you discover. Because I don't know if anybody's noticed, but the spiritualized ego is really running around. Really running around. And I appreciated that, because in this lineage we speak very much from direct experience, and mostly cutting right to emptiness, no self. But ego development, I guess you might say, maturation, is actually an aspect of this journey. So I was kind of like, okay, but where is it in this lineage? Well, it's very clear, actually, in the Way of Liberation. And in Adya's way, it's succinct, precise, direct, and super accessible. And one of his directions, pointers, is to clarify our aspiration. So really asking, why am I here? Why would I find myself in this group in Cove, Oregon, listening to these words? You know, in a sincere way, a really sincere way. Why am I here? And then listen deeply. Listen deeply. I mean, maybe we'll have a spur of the moment, just, you know, sort of fire flash answer to that question. And that's beautiful too. But as we unwrap and unravel and unfold that, clarifying one's aspiration, I mean, I guess we could say setting an intention, but it's a little bit different than setting an intention, because it runs a little bit deeper, beyond just this event. You know, what draws me? What longing, what yearning am I actually following to find myself here? I mean, you know, I've had people tell me this, just, you know, to eat meals they didn't have to shop for or do the dishes. I'm not judging anybody's reasons. I mean, there's lots of levels to life, and if you're, you know, super tired, that can be a really amazing aspect to retreat. It's all just sort of done for you. But deeper than that, like the heart's longing, the aspiration. I feel like it's a really great compass, and it's not a bad place to visit the first part of retreat, because we don't know what we're going to encounter as we sit here in silence and let go of the mind's narrative, or at least question into it, at least question the narrative. In that space, you know, we're going to be quiet so that silence can actually make itself known. You know, silence it's not coming and going. It's not a coming and going phenomena. It's like space. No matter what objects we put in space, space is. It's not altered or changed by what is occupying space. Silence is not altered or changed in any way by what noises we might hear, sounds. But we're going to come together to be relatively quiet by not speaking, but also by stopping the narrative, stopping the belief in thoughts as fundamental identifiers and describers and all the rest. So in that space that's created, you know, stuff will arise. That's the whole journey here. And when it does, it's like having a little talisman in your pocket that's clarifying your aspiration. So the touchstone you can go back to, oh yeah, that's why I'm here. That's what brought me here. This is what my heart is, how my heart is steering me at this moment. The conceptualizing, identified aspect of mind can get a little bit squirrely at retreat, maybe not, but it can. With comparisons is a big one that comes up for a lot of us. You know, it'll start comparing, they're getting it, I'm not. I look terrible in these pants. I look terrible. I'm sure people are noticing how terrible I look. You know, whatever it is. I don't know what the comparison's going to be, but it likes to compare. It's into it. Perceived needs, you know. No, ketchup. Who would serve this without ketchup? I must have ketchup. Ketchup, you know. Perceived needs, comparison, cynicism. I don't understand a word she's saying. Who is this lady? Why did I show up for this? I can't imagine why I'm listening to her. You know, good grief. I just heard her say this. I don't know. I have 4 more days. You know, that whole thing, that whole tape can get going. Fears about whatever, you know, they won't have this at lunch tomorrow. I know they won't. Or, you know, I mean, whatever the fear might be. I didn't bring the right coat. I don't have the right shoes. It might rain. I mean, is my family okay? I don't know what the fears will be. It likes to bring out those and, you know, hang them out there seductively. Grab this, grab this. What are the other ones that come up? Narratives upon narratives upon narratives. So like the thought that comes in, not your thought, not my thought, not anyone's thought. It's a thought in consciousness that grabs the attention. And then it's believed, oh my God, that's true. And then you feel a certain way about that. Like, and that's how I feel about it, because it's true. And, and yeah, I believe that. And then that spurs a whole nother thought. And pretty soon, 10 minutes down the road, who even knows what the original thought was, but this whole narrative that is based in history is just spinning out in front of you, as you're sitting on the mat. Oh, we've all been there. I left the gas on in the stove. I know I did. Obsessive, perseverant. I mean, all the stuff. It's a matter of attention. What one wants to attend to in that moment, one gets to attend to in that moment. That's the amazing thing. You get to pay attention to what you want to pay attention to. This attention is so underused. It's so underused. It's kind of my soapbox. We get to pay attention to what we'd like to pay attention to. So if we are grounded in this clarification of our aspiration, whatever that is for you, and your deepest understanding and knowing of yourself in this moment, then that begins to pull the attention to it. If we can give the attention, it's met. I think it was Ramana who said, the love that the teacher, and I don't mean me, but our teacher life has for each one of us is 100 million fold. What, it will meet us. It will meet us in this way that is extraordinary and beyond just our capacity as individuations. So it's worthwhile to contemplate in a sincere, that's another one of Ajah's parameters, keep you on the rails, indicators, sincerity, which is not the same thing as I'm not saying this is anyone in this room. I highly doubt that it is anyone in this room. But there can be this tendency for a spiritualized ego to hear something like absolute sincerity, and then the next thing you know, it's like that spiritualized ego is telling somebody something, because, in the name of honesty, raw honesty. Goes around in spiritual circles. In this retreat, what I'm speaking about, and you'll have to be, the steward of your own life, but is a sincerity with yourself about what's actually going on, what's actually occurring. So for this time, we have this precious, it's so precious, indescribably precious, to be able to drop all the roles, slightly, maybe kind of like, brings up some apprehension, like, what will I do for the next 7 days or whatever? But it's a precious thing because there's this opportunity to really explore what it means to, another one of Adya's pointers, unconditionally follow through on your aspiration. Unconditional. Unconditional follow through. And be really, really sincere and true with ourselves, which we can't always do. We have roles, you know. A big part of being in relationship is compromise and acceptance and all of the stuff. But in this retreat, although we are very much coming out, hopefully, relinquishing, let's say, coming out from underneath the trance of me-ness, me, into this we space, it's also a time of deep autonomy because you can rest here in good company, in a sacred way, and really explore deeply, look deeply, listen deeply, and still feel the support and the love without the same kind of relational stuff that we're generally doing, which is not bad. We're not. It's not like we're against it, right? We love who we love. We do what we do. But at Silent Retreat, there's this opportunity. It's an opportunity to relinquish, surrender, let go, give way, however the words work for you. Conditioned narratives, at least question into them. Conditioned ways of being, because you're not necessarily having to, work something out. Then you can sort of relinquish the analysis and the psychological stories, not against psychology, not against bad aspects of our life, the psychological self, has its place and the exploration of that. But here, when the mind is doing all that referencing, psychologically referencing, emotionally referencing, historically referencing, this is the moment to pay attention to something deeper and beyond that. Because you don't really have anything, that needs to be accomplished. See if we can find that effortless effort. Like breathing, like heart beating. The kind of natural enjoyment that is usually reserved for, those high moments or elated states, or something that we get or something that we push away, and we have that momentary sense of like an upward feeling, a joyful feeling, a happy feeling. It's deeper than that. It's deeper than any kind of coming and going. It's more close, more intimate. I always say it's like water being wet. Like the sun can't illuminate itself, it is illumination. That's what it is. So we're looking for something that's that close in, see? It's generally very obscured by all the mostly belief and a felt sense of being somebody. So we made it here, and it's so full of wonder. And even if one is moved into deep grief, or, whatever may come, there is a ground, a ground, our ground of being. That is very naturally at rest and at ease through every relative circumstance. And they're all precious, and they're all doorways, and they're all perfect and divine. It finally dawns on us, doesn't it? That what more could we ask for than what is right here, right now? And that is the ground for all that we hope and dream and vision. It exists right here, right now, as this. And in that realization and that lending, then it begins to come into being in a more material way. Mm. One thing I do usually try to go over on the first night is that, I like iconography. I'm sort of into it. I don't bring a lot of it actually. We just started this Bodhisattva altar, I think, a couple of retreats ago. I'm not sure. People have really enjoyed it. I don't know what's offensive to some, what isn't offensive to others, who grew up, I don't want to pick on anybody, but Catholic or or some other thing that like stifled your creativity. I'm not wedded to any of it in a dogmatic, believing sort of way. And yet, the symbols for what is directly experienced and felt here are really rich and moving for me, just like flowers. So I hope that it is okay for everyone. Our good friend Nate in Crestone told me that wherever he goes to retreat, Nate is a very elegant man. I don't know how you describe him, Alex, but he's so Nate. He's so himself. And he has this way of talking. He's 94 years old. And he said to me, you go with a filter, and it is your own personal filter. And it doesn't matter. You're just there for the transmission. And if the words don't fit, they're naturally filtered out. If the images don't fit, they're naturally filtered out. I really liked it. It was just so Nate. It really is about the transmission, the gathering. I mean, many of you, as you got here today, said you were already feeling it before you got here. I mean, it's that where two or more are gathered. There it is. There's love. Love, love, love. The essential, fundamental, unconditional, uncaused love. It doesn't have to do with transactional being. It's not transactional. It is. Just is. So if anybody ever wants to bring to retreat a picture or a representation of another being that has been very, like the concept of a bodhisattva where their life is given to serve all being. These are some representations on that far altar of some inspirational being for me. What we did last time is, if you were so moved, you could write something from your heart, a prayer, or just, I don't know what all people did. I didn't read them. I just buried them in the rose garden after retreat, which I'm glad to do again. And put it on that altar. It was helpful for some people. It might totally not be your thing. It's cool. Did you want to say anything else about that, Trish? You have to speak into the mic or people can't hear you. No? Okay. There's very little instruction for meditation in this lineage, but I did print off Adya's definition of true meditation. And I've read it countless times. I see something new every time I read it. It's countless. So it will seem vague and like, what if you are very, if a technique has been useful for you and you like technique, and all I can say is to continue asking yourself the question, how's that working for me? And is it useful? And if the answer is yes, then you're in the right spot for that technique. It's allowing all that is happening to be as it is. So we're not asking reality to be something other than it is. We're not asking thoughts to be other than they are. We're not asking other people to be other than they are. We're not asking reality to be other than it actually is. In this moment, we're just allowing. That's not to say that you come out on the other side and you don't stand for anything and da 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 da. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about in the meditation sessions, allowing for that moment, for that particular session of meditation, to just recognize what is as it is. So there is the recognition of, let's say, we don't have to deal with the sportsman club because evidently they're not going to shoot guns over there anymore during meditation. That ended. But let's say they were. It was an Eastern Oregon thing where we had like the people shooting during morning meditation on Sunday of retreat, but we don't have to do that anymore. So there would be that. But that's all. That's what it would be. Now the story might be, guns and meditation, da 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 da, whatever the narrative, can't go together, da 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 da. Okay. Okay? You kind of let that have its say, that there, you don't, with belief. Later on, it might be different. It's kind of like watching a river flow. Just, you can't catch it. You can't grab it. You know, it's endlessly coming and going, coming, arising, abiding, falling away. Arising, abiding, falling away. And then that attention, oh yeah, what's deeper here? That little stone in your pocket. What's this really about? And, my friends, relinquishing the superego that wants to come in and judge everything you're doing. I'm not doing it right. I'm certainly not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm not the other thing. I had this thought. Oh my God. That's definitely a punishable sin. Or whatever it is. I mean, I asked the Kenpo about it. I'm like, man, how do you bust through the unworthiness of the Western mind, the Western superego, that seed of the ego structure? Relax, he said. Relax. It's called All the Hemispheres. Oh, here we got another one coming in. All the Hemispheres. It's an encouragement to each of us to maybe try something fresh, and a new, look for the freshness, for the newness, rather than the same old conditioned, habitual patterning that we tend to, we're human, we fall into it. Leave the familiar for a while. Let your senses and bodies stretch out like a welcomed season onto the meadows and shores and hills. Open up to the roof. Make a new watermark on your excitement and love. Like a blooming night flower, bestow your vital fragrance of joy and giving upon our intimate assembly. Change rooms in your mind for a day. All the hemispheres in existence lie beside an equator in the heart. Greet yourself in your eternal and infinite forms as you mount the hidden tide and travel back home. All the hemispheres in heaven are sitting around a fire, chatting, while stitching themselves together into the great circle inside of each of us. Change rooms in your mind for a day. Make a new watermark on your excitement and love. Why not? The Kagyu lineage there at Vajravidya put a lot of emphasis on what they call confidence. But it's kind of like an excitement, bringing something other than, I mean, we do have to apply some discipline. We have to be sincere. We have to be sincere sometimes, and more disciplined than other times. But even in that discipline, there can be this confident excitement, of faith, you might want to say, in our vernacular, of the basic goodness and our aspiration. What brought us here? What brings us here? I think sometimes, reverence is mistaken for like somberness in Western spirituality sometimes. But I mean, what can be more reverent than this? And this is not somber.